este papel de Ryan Reynolds. Mucho antes de ser Deadpool, cuando Ryan Reynolds todavía estaba buscando su lugar en la industria, fue parte de Adventureland. Al principio Ryan Reynolds rechazó ser parte de esta película, pero su director Greg Mottola lo convenció después de mostrarle una película de Fellini llamada Los Inútiles, que fue suficiente para ser parte de este coming of age que es tan nostálgico que fíjense cómo lo define su propio director.
We now return to Mira Akien and Contre with our latest interview.
I actually wrote it before I did Superbad, and I was thinking of trying to get it financed when Judd called me about Superbad. So I said, well, I'll gladly put this down and do Superbad instead and see. Yeah. And I was lucky because even before Superbad come out, people had heard good things about it. So it helped me get the financing for Adventureland.
What am I supposed to do? I'm not even qualified for manual labor.
Life after college is not exactly what James expected.
I wanted to make a melancholy summer film, sort of a hangout film, something that was, you know, about a lot of the sadness and shabbiness I felt growing up in a certain kind of suburb. That, you know, life is, people kind of accept what they've got, and it's often not enough to be happy. And I just see a sadness in that world, and so it's the sad Superbad.
Yeah, oh yeah, I like that definition, yeah.
I'm amazed at how tiny my paycheck is.
We are doing the work of pathetic, lazy morons.
Why did you choose that period of time?
Well, it was roughly the time I was that age. And growing up in the 80s, and I felt like a lot of stuff that was said in the 80s it's a tricky thing to do, because a lot of stuff is making fun of like how bad fashions were and how cheesy the 80s were. And they were, so you can't entirely get away from it, because the way people dressed and the hairstyles and the vibe of the 80s. But I like the idea that it felt very innocent to me compared to the mid 2000s. Obviously well before the internet and cell phones. And I felt like, you know, I mean, maybe I was thinking of movies like American Graffiti or The Last Picture Show, things that had a nostalgic vibe in a world that's about to change. That's, you know, that it was sort of at the end of the 80s, things were going to start to become the 90s, and fashions were going to change, and the world's going to change, and we're all going to grow up, and you know.
This spring,
Be cool with that.
from the director of Superbad.
Well, I mean, I liked him in everything I'd ever seen him in, and I wondered why he hadn't quite taken off yet, because I always thought, this guy's great, he's got tremendous charisma, and I also could tell he had like a dark sense of humor, that there's, you know, I mean, which it made total sense to me that Deadpool was a huge hit with him, because he's got a kind of really dark, you know, he loves black humor, and so I thought this would be an interesting, different way to see him, different than other stuff he's done. And when I met with him, he wasn't entirely sure it was the right part for him, and I said, do me a favor and go look at this Fellini film called I Vitellone, and it's about a bunch of young guys who were like in their early 20s, hanging out in this small shore town that Fellini grew up in, with like dead end lives, just like bad marriages or living it with their parents still, fucking around, and they all have like, you know, sort of a sad trajectory of unfulfilled youth. And there's this one character who's married but also having an affair with an older married woman, and he's a real womanizer, and he's just really, he can only feel himself when he's seducing women and when he's getting their attention, and he's very good looking, but he's also pathetic. And I said, pay attention to that character and tell me if you think there's something interesting about playing a guy like that. And he came back and he said, yeah, there is something interesting about playing a guy like that. A guy who just is really not happy with himself and really struggles with self-esteem. And so he acts out by trying to be, you know, Lothario.
Yeah.
Yeah. and you know, and of course Ryan was awesome, and he's a great guy, and he's, you know, it's nice when someone who's that cool of a person, good of a person, has massive success, because I know he's not like one of those people that go like, oh, it's always the jerks.
Yeah.
It's not him.
Adventureland.
You mean drinking drugs?
I think I had a bad corn dog.
Yeah, don't ever eat the corn dogs.
Let me go.